welcome to 3 and Out on TV Piedmont Channel 60. I'm your host, Brian Carter, alongside Ryan Orlovsky. We've got a good one in store for you today. Orlovsky, what's our schedule look like?
On the opening tip, we debate on Bobby Knight possibly going to UGA. We'll get to the emails on the 7th inning stretch, and on third down, we'll have a special guest with us for a more abstract, laid-back segment. As always, if you have questions, comments, or topic suggestions, feel free to email us at 3andoutsports@gmail.com. All emailers receive a free 3 and Out pen.
Can't beat that. Also, you can now check us out on our MySpace page at myspace.com/3andoutsports or watch us on YouTube as well. Just type in 3 and Out. Potentially, Bobby Knight could be headed to UGA. By the time you see this, it could already happen. Although he showed interest in the job, he wants an offer straight up without making it look like he was looking for it, which is ridiculous. Regardless of if he gets the job or not, we debate now on whether he'd be a good fit in the SEC or UGA in particular. What do you think?
Why wouldn't Bob Knight be a good fit for UGA? I mean, even though the Dogs made it to the tourney last year, they're 9-11 overall with an 0-5 mark in the SEC. You can't argue that a team doesn't need a boost, and who better to give them that boost than Bob Knight?
Yeah, I'm going to say I don't think he's going to be a good fit. I mean, he said if the right situation came along, then he'd take the job. You know, he said, and he did say when he left Texas Tech that he wasn't necessarily retiring. You know, it's a possibility he could come back. You know, it could be good for him in UGA, but I guess it wouldn't be too hard to improve a team like UGA. I mean, they are really horrible, a team that values football and academics and even gymnastics above everything else. Basketball, just not a good sport at UGA, and I don't see this as a good fit for him. It's a bad basketball conference. I mean, I'm an Arkansas fan, but I know for sure that the SEC and the basketball not really doing too well. I mean, it's just always been that way. You think of ACC, you think of Big Ten, Big 12 basketball. Even Pac-10 basketball is ahead of the SEC. So I don't see that it's a good situation. It's more like me seeing Bobby Knight on courtside with UGA is like seeing MJ with the Wizards to me. That's just how I feel about it.
Well, I think part of the reason that Georgia has struggled, as you mentioned, is because it's a football school, and they're not able to get these highly recruited athletes to come play basketball there. But nobody wants to play for a losing team, so I can see why they don't end up going to UGA. But being around the game for over 40 years and coaching at big-time programs like Indiana, I mean, Bob Knight would be a huge asset for recruiting. And I think just playing for Bob Knight would get guys to come there.
It could, but, you know, switch gears a little bit here. I still think that Dennis Felton was wrongfully fired. Why do you fire a guy mid-season? I don't understand doing that to a team right now because the season's already a wash, and I don't see the point. You know, if you're going to fire him, you should have done it at the end of last year, even though they had a pretty good run there in the SEC tournament. And then they go into the NCAA tournament, and they did pretty well. They made it through a couple of rounds, and they finally got ousted. But I just don't – they start out 0-6 in the conference and 9-12 overall. This should have been done earlier in the season, not mid-season like it was done, because I think now they're just hiring for the name of Bob Knight. He's a brand. And what they're doing is hiring him now because he is the best available coach at this point in time. And I think that Felton was the scapegoat, so now they're getting rid of Felton and trying to get Bob Knight as quickly as they can before the season's over, and then other teams can pursue Bob Knight as well. And I mean, it's more to Bob Knight's interest to wait and see what could, happen possibly in the offseason. So you never know.
Well, it's a dream of Bob Knight's to coach in the SEC. I don't see why Georgia wouldn't take a chance on him. This is a guy that's 902 and 371. He's the winningest coach in NCAA men's basketball history. True. He has a winning percentage of 708. He coached at Indiana for almost 30 years. That's a top program right there in the nation. He had 11 Big Ten championships and 3 national championships. A guy with this kind of resume, why wouldn't you want him at your school? You have to take a chance with him. And you say, a lot of people are going to argue, this guy was fired for a reason. Yes, he assaulted a player, but UGA basketball players are only getting in the news recently, other than last year, because they're always getting into trouble. Maybe some of those guys need to get assaulted. This is exactly why Bob Knight is a perfect fit for UGA.
Well,
they're not going to disobey Bob Knight.
But they're going to need to get some more chairs, though, in Stegman Coliseum. But there's cons for both sides here. There's less cons for Georgia. There are some that exist, but for Georgia, yeah, this is definitely a great thing. It's publicity. It could be good for recruiting, marketing. All around, it looks good for Georgia, but not so much for Bob Knight. Why go? It's like MJ. You've gone out on top, and although Bob Knight did not go out on top, he's got 902 career wins. he's pretty much done everything he can, and it just seems like there's nowhere he's not going to get Georgia into the Sweet 16. I don't care who he's got.
Well, this year we can agree that that's a total wash, and it's unrealistic to think that. But
again, you go back to conference, and the prestige of the SEC not very well, and a team, as we mentioned, a school that values football and gymnastics and sports primarily, and baseball is somewhat transitioning into that area as well. But Knight won't put up with crap, and you mentioned that already. And Georgia's already kicking a lot of players out, so UGA's got a bad rep with players. So this is a con for Knight because he's going to have to deal with more crap. He doesn't want to deal with it, but he's going to end up going and do that. On the other hand, you look at cons for Georgia. A lot of people say the guy's a young 68 years old. I'm sorry, I don't think there's nothing young about 68. He doesn't get up every morning and run with the track coach. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he left in the middle of a season already with Texas Tech. What's to stop him from doing that at UGA? And you might see Bobby Knight become Bobby Petrino. You never know what could happen in that situation. And the thing is, it takes 4 to 5 years for a coach to put a good team together. And then there's also the third-year rule with coaches, where usually around that third year you can tell what kind of coach that person really is, right? Does he even have that much in him? I mean, he's 68 years old, and UGA, I think it's more in their interest to go with a fiery young coach that's going to be able to connect more with the team and build a winning tradition and have the longevity that goes with that.
Well, as I mentioned before, though, Bob Knight may be able to get these recruits to come in there within the next 2 years. I mean, you're right with the fiery young coach. I can agree with that. But Bob Knight's just the guy that the people want to play for, and yes. He's dealt with the best around. He's coached Michael Jordan. You're mentioning Michael Jordan. He's coached Michael Jordan. He's led teams to Olympic gold medals in the '84 Olympic Games. He's won NCAA championships. He's won NIT championships. At this point, Georgia does not have a strong basketball program, so why wouldn't you have to take a shot?
Yeah, it's been, Bob Knight is a great coach, but a lot of people fail to forget that it's been over 20 years since he's even taken a team past the Sweet 16. That's not a known fact. Most people think it's had to have been sooner than that, but it really hasn't. I can see how this is going to create an initial buzz. Definitely more players are going to come in. The guy's got an incredible passion for the game of basketball. This would definitely generate some buzz, but would it be long enough to build a rich program? I don't think so. I think he's too late in his career, and it's too big of a comeback. And, he might get there and not decide he want to stay 1-2 years, and that's just not long enough at all. And Arizona is a job that seems more attractive for Bobby Knight. I don't know why he wouldn't go there. It's a wrong-headed head start for him to go to UGA. But he could make a huge splash, get some excitement in winning, but eventually I think this team would just self-destruct.
This is Georgia's chance to turn their program around. I think that you'll see the effects almost immediately. Take a chance. Put your program on the shoulders of Bob Knight. It'd be crazy not to.
We'll see. Can you hand me that basketball real quick? Should have done that. Should have done that before the segment started. But I'm going to go ahead and give out my game ball. My game ball goes to an unnamed school coach who is fired after not apologizing for a 100-0 win. His girls' basketball team. He actually 100-0. That's unreal in basketball. I don't care, guys, girls, whatever. But I got to hand it to the coach. You shouldn't have to apologize. The guy did his job. He put in his players who hardly get to play. You can't tell those girls to go out there and not shoot the ball and not play defense because they're in there to better themselves. The fact that you win 100-0, nothing shameful about it as long as you put in those players at the end, and he did that.
I'm going to go a different route this time. Forget the game ball. We're going with a game puck. I got to give it to Alexander Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals. Ovechkin has 36 goals to this point this season. He's third overall in the NHL with 67 points. His team is second in the Eastern Conference with 33 wins, but the main reason I give him the puck is because he scored 5 goals in the past 2 games.
Can Ruben catch a puck? He can. The crew's calling for a full timeout, so we'll see you on the other side of the break. Stay tuned for more 3 and Out.